Ani, wag naksing Odawa and Dow, Padaske and Dojpa, Shmoganesh, Mokopiwan Nospan, Chikan and Dishnakas. Fred Harrington is my taxpayer name. I love going to storytellings. When I went to Michigan State, I used to go over to the North American Lansing Indian Center, or Lansing North American Indian Center. And I forgot her name. It was Bear Clan, and she would point. And whoever she pointed to had to get up and tell a story. And I'm sitting there thinking desperately, can I come up with a story? And sooner or later, she pointed at me, and I remembered one. That was good. And they would do that until 1 o'clock in the morning. There was a lot of people that knew stories. It was fun. I don't think I can last till 1 o'clock anymore. But so we tell stories for different reasons. And sometimes we tell stories about things that happened in our life, or sometimes history, sometimes to teach something that's difficult to teach without a story. Feelings, or, the seven grandfathers sometimes are difficult to teach without a story. So I was a education director one time when we first started up. And I had a whole bunch of kids working for me. They were all paid by the Department of Labor. They all got minimum wage. And they come in and said, Fred, what do you want us to do today? And I said, I want you to make a talking stick. And they said, well, how do we make one? I said, I don't know. Get together and see if you can figure out how to do it. And they come back a little while later and they said, Joe Mitchell knows how to do it. I said, well, where's Joe? They said, he works down there at the Crooked Tree Arts Council. So I said, well, go see Joe. What do you got to do when you go see him? And they said, well, we got to take sema. So I gave them some sema, and they pittered out of the office and come back a little while later, and they said, we know how to do it. And I said, well, how do you do it? And they said, we got to get a tree or a branch that has a stick with a fork on it. And I said, what's that represent? And they said, it's the decisions we have to make in life every day. We have that fork in the road, and we have to decide which path we're going to take every day. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I said, well, go get that stick. And they came back. They actually came back with this stick, but it was about this long here and about that long there. And I said, do you think maybe we can cut it down a little bit? And so we cut it down. And then I said, is that it? Just need the stick? And they said, no, you got to have 4 ribbons on it. And they got to be 4 different colors of the 4 directions. The Zawa for the east, the Muskwa for the south, Mukwa or Mukadeh for the western direction, and Wabshka for the northern direction. And so I said, well, I got some leather here. You guys can make the ribbons out of that, but how are we going to color them? And they were thinking about it, and one of them says, Grandma knows how to make them. And so Arlene. So they took off and they went over to Arlene's, and they come back a little while later, and they had all these recipes for colors. And they colored these ribbons, and originally they came out pretty nice. There was a real dark black one, a red one, a yellow one, and a white one. They started out white, so they just left that one. And apparently we forgot something in the recipe because the colors faded. But I never had the heart to add new colors on them. I just left them the way the kids made them. And then I said, is that it? And they said, no, we got to have an eagle feather hanging off from this side. And because this is the feather that represents the messenger to our Creator. And so I had one feather at that point in time, and I put it on there. And then Allie Maldonado gave me 4 feathers, and she says, what should you do with these? Or, do whatever you want to do with them. And I said, well, I got a perfect thing. And I put them on this stick. And so we got 4 feathers. And when you're nervous, when you're up there talking in front of a group of people, you can just stroke these feathers and it just calms you right down. And you feel good and you can tell your story. Until you get old and then you can't get CRS and you can't remember nothing. But these feathers help you when you're talking and you're nervous in front of a group of people. And you just stroke them. And people look at feathers like they're pretty fragile. Man, eagle feathers are pretty darn sturdy. You don't have to worry about hurting them that much. We just try to keep them off the floor. And so since I was in the education department, and I wanted to make it educational academically instead of just culturally, I asked them to calculate out their wages, how many hours it took them to make this stick and how many of them there were. And I asked them how much it cost to make this stick. And they calculated it out. And it was $856. It cost the Department of Labor to make this talking stick. I figure it's the most expensive talking stick in the world. So I carry it around. I love it. I'll carry it till I die. Giz, what story should I tell? Oh, man. Now, sometimes we tell stories that are just fun, right? Do you guys know that dogs used to take their tails off when they came in the house, right? It's like boys are supposed to take their hat off. You guys know men are supposed to take their hat off when they come in the house. Nobody does that anymore. I still take my hat off. Well, we learned it from the dogs. When a dog came into the lodge, the first thing he did was take his hat off and stick it up on the wall there by the door. There was always hangers there for all these tails and hats. And so there was you go into this lodge. Now, a lot of these dogs, what's the difference between a beagle's tail and another beagle's tail? Yeah, you can't tell the difference, right? So how do they tell which one is which?
Different colors?
They got to smell them. They can tell by the smell which one is their tail. So when they leave, they go around, they pick all those up, and they smell all those tails. And when they get to the right one, they stick it back on, and they go on out. Well, there was a big gathering of dogs. They had some important meeting, and all the dogs in all of Turtle Island came to this one big meeting. And they all went in there, and everybody took their tail off just like they were supposed to, and they hung their tails up on there. And they all went in, and then the last dog in, he was like kind of a jokester. And he came in there, and he looked around, and he thought, I wonder what I could do to get everybody riled up. And he yelled, "Scooter! Scooter! Fire!" Well, all them dogs got up. Every dog in Turtle Island got up all at the same time and ran for the door. Now, no self-respecting dog is going to go outside without his tail on. And they didn't figure they had time to smell around and find each other's own. So they just put on whichever tail they could. And ever since then now, you see dogs going around smelling each other, trying to find their right tails. Yeah. What's another one? Oh, well, gosh, that's one of my absolute favorite stories. This is one that Simon Otto used to tell. And Simon Bunn. We're Odawas, right? We're traders. Everybody knows that. They know we're the best. We got all the best traders in the whole of Turtle Island. And this white guy comes here, John Smith, and he comes to our camp, and he says, I hear you guys are the best traders. And they all said, yeah. And he says, well, I came here to show you that I'm a better trader than you are. He says, who's your best trader? And they said, Wagosh. And he says, well, go get Wagosh and we'll do some trading. And we're going to find out who's the best trader in all of Turtle Island here. He says, now that we came over across the Great Lake, he says, we're going to show you how to trade. And they said, well, he's not here. We're going to have to send somebody out to get him. And he says, well, yeah, send him out. Go get him. Go get Wagosh. And he's sitting there waiting, and he's getting impatient. And he's jittering around looking. He goes over and he gets the head man. He says, hey, where's this Wagosh? I want to show him who's the best trader. And they said, well, he'll be along pretty soon. And he waited another day. He waited all day long and all night and all day. And finally, Wagosh comes into camp. And he comes up and says, they sent a guy out to get me and told me you wanted me for something. And John says, yeah, I hear you're the best trader out of all the Odawas. And I came here to trade with you to prove that I'm better than you are. And Wagosh, he says, well, that's going to be hard for me. I didn't bring my medicine. And he says, what do you mean you didn't bring your medicine? Wagosh says, I can't trade without my medicine. And John says, well, go get it. And he says, okay, I'll be back. And he started walking away, and he looked back, and he says, it's going to take me 4 days to get back home and get my medicine and come back. And he says, I could do it a lot faster if I had your horse. And John says, well, take my horse then and go get your medicine, because I want to show you who the best trader is. And so Wagosh grabbed that horse and he started leaving town, and then he turned around and he come back and he says, I'm going to have to ride hard and fast to be able to turn around and come back in less than a day. He says, I think your horse would like it if I had that saddle. And John says, well then, here, put the saddle on there and go. Would you? I want to trade. I want to show you who's best. And so Wagosh put that saddle on that horse and he started heading towards the edge of camp. And he stopped and he turned around and he looked, he come back over, and John says, what now? He says, well, the edge of town is all blackberries, and I got to ride through all them blackberries. If I had your chaps, I wouldn't have to go slow. I could ride fast through all them blackberries and I wouldn't get cut up. And I'd be back in 1 day, easily then. John took off his pants and gave them to him and said, well, please hurry up and get back here, because I want to trade. I want to prove that I'm the best. So Wagosh put his pants on there and he jumped up on that horse and he looked out towards the edge of town and he looked up and he says, I I think it's going to rain or snow up there in that mountain pass I got to go through. If I had your blanket, I wouldn't have to stop, build a fire, and get warm again. I could come back and lickety-split. So John gave him his blanket, threw it up on his shoulders, and smacked that horse on the butt. And Wagosh took off running. And John Smith stood there thinking he was the best trader. And Wagosh was riding out of town with his horse, his saddle, his pants, and his blanket. Everybody laugh. He never came back. No. John probably sat there for 4 days and 4 nights thinking he was the best. Yeah. So, pardon me? He took off with all this stuff, all John's stuff.
Did Smith actually come to Michigan? Because he's like a real historical figure.
Oh, yeah. What else did we tell? What's your favorite story?
The little people.
Oh, bring your chair over. The other day I was out, right here. I was out working on my car. And you got to sit this way. So I was out the other day working on my car. And I laid a wrench down. It was dark out already. I had lights and stuff. I put that wrench down behind me. And I turned around, I start working on my car again, and I turned around and looked for my wrench, and it was gone. What do you suppose happened to it?
The little people took it.
Little people?
Yeah.
Who are the little people?
You don't know who the little people are?
No, I don't know who the little people are. So, where'd they come from?
Mackinac Island.
Why did they leave Mackinac Island?
Okay, so the story goes, the Iroquois wanted to get the people on Mackinac Island. But,
The Michilimackinac?
yes,
Oh,
but it would have been too hard because, like, they would have had to go through
it's hard to attack an island.
and a couple of Great Lakes.
Yeah.
So, they waited till the water froze over. They walked over, the whole tribe came over, and then,
The Iroquois?
yeah, the Iroquois, and they just surrounded the island. And then they came down and just started killing people one by one.
Oh, man.
So there were only 2 people that escaped.
How'd they get away?
They wore their snowshoes backwards
Why would they wear snowshoes backwards?
so that when they're walking to go to Sheboygan, the Iroquois will follow their tracks but then see that they're going back to the island and they'll think, we'll get them later.
Ah.
So they go to Sheboygan.
So they got away. Sheboygan?
And they hide. Make sure nobody finds them. They don't go out in the daytime. They have 10 children through these years. And then to keep them small so they can't be seen, they use magic on them.
Ah.
And we call them the little people.
So, what do they do?
They kind of go out at night.
They never go out in the daytime?
Nope. And the only way you know they're there is your dog is barking and you don't see anything and you don't hear anything.
Huh. What do they eat?
And the stuff that people leave out, or they'll forage for berries.
So if we hear something in the middle of the night and we can't see it, but our dogs are barking, it's the little people.
Yep.
And what do we do to make friends with the little people?
Give them food from our lunches.
What do you mean, give them food?
We kind of leave out scraps.
We make a prayer and we put food down for them?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. And what else about them? Where do they live?
On pine trees and like nests.
Oh, those big clumps in the pine trees. That's where they live. So when we see them, we stop and we leave a little bit of our lunch down at the base of the tree so they can eat. People that smoke cigarettes sometimes leave this much of their cigarette. They leave it down there so the little people can smoke it.
Now that I don't get, but okay.
Sema tobacco.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, miigwech for helping me out with that story. This is my grandson. No chance. Bagizzo. What's bagizzo mean?
The one who is swimming.
Ah. Okay. So, what other story should I tell?
I don't know. Maybe just tell a funny story that's not native.
Let me tell a historical story.
Okay.
There was another group, another tribe, the Musquedesh, that lived around here. They were like prairie people and farmers, real nice people. They never warred on anybody. We were friends with them. We lived up on the islands over on the other lake, and but we had a fierce war chief, Saugema, that every once in a while he would go out on a warpath. And back then, now who knows why, it was sometimes over food or land or whatever, but I don't know the real reason why he went this time, but he went all the way over there to war on the Winnebagos. And they're over in Wisconsin, what's now Wisconsin. And that's a long G-Mon ride to go all the way across the lake. You know, that's about 150 miles across. And any of you have ever tried to paddle just to Beaver Island found out that that's a long way. So he took his war party and he went all the way over there. Well, we'd had good luck against them before and we've had some bad luck. And that time they got beat up real bad. And they came back across the lake. They stopped at Beaver Island and then they come the rest of the way in and they were going to stop in. And Saugema says, let's stop in there and tell our friends, the Mashkutans, or the Musquedesh. There was two different names that they were called. And he says, let's stop in there and tell them, you know, our lament, what this tragedy that befell us when we were out there on the warpath. And they painted their face black and they were singing their death songs. And they come in there and the chief from the Musquedesh, he says, those people are crazy. They go all the way over there and they fight them Huron, or the Winnebagos. They want us to feel sorry for them. We don't even go on a war party. He says, let's show them a lesson. And so they got a bunch of wet ashes and they wrapped them up in leaves and they made little balls. And they threw them balls of wet ashes on those warriors. And Saugema says, we're not going to stop here. He says, these people show us no respect. Let's go home and we're going to come back here. And the next time we come back here, they're going to respect us.
Why should we respect them now?
Well,
Why should they respect us? That makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to us now because we war with a pencil. It's a lot safer to war with a pencil than it is with arrows. So Saugema took his group back home to the islands, and then he started getting back up another war party to come in and teach those Musquedesh a lesson. And back then, you had to ask everybody if you wanted them to be in your war party. And you had to go around and convince people to come and be in a war party. And it was not dishonorable to say, no, I'm not going. I don't want to do it. I like those people. Whatever reason, it was not dishonorable to say no. So you had to go around and convince people. And why don't you go over and get that day wagon? So Saugema, he went around camp and he tried convincing people. And when he was doing it, he sang this song. Wenesh, gepawichiwe, chindopanian, Wenesh, gepawichiwe, chindopanian. What he was saying is, who will go on the warpath with me? And the answer is Ninsa. So when I sing it again, you guys all got to say Ninsa. I will. Ready? Wenesh, gepawichiwe, chindopanian, Wenesh, gepawichiwe, chindopanian, Ninsa! Now you guys are going on the war party, you're not going to dinner. Wenesh, Ninsa! Wenesh, gepawichiwe, chindopanian, Wenesh, gepawichiwe, chindopanian, Ninsa! All right. So he gathered up his war party and he headed back down across the lake. And I don't know if you guys can even imagine this, but paddling around in these lakes can be treacherous. And they went back and forth across these lakes all the time. Everything they did, they were in those Wigwas Gman, the birch bark canoes, and they just paddled wherever they went. And it's just hard to imagine now doing something like that. But they came back over, and they snuck through the woods, and they were gonna, a couple hills away from the main camp of the Musquedesh, and they were gonna go in the morning, and they were gonna show them in a war respect. So they were getting ready to bed down, and one of the women from the camp came out. She was picking berries. And, oh my gosh, now she found them. The surprise is gone, right? They're going to do a surprise attack. There's no surprise now. So the Saugema starts thinking quick, and he says, hey, are you married? And she says, no. And he says, well, I got this young man here. He's the best looking, strongest young man in the tribe. If you go back to your camp and you keep our secret, we'll give you him for a husband. And she looked at him and she says, oh, I like the looks of this guy. And says, I'll keep your secret. And Saugema says, when you hear us first come into camp, you come out and you tell us that you kept the secret, and we'll spare your life when we kill everyone else. So she took off. They came into camp the next morning, and sure enough, she'd kept that secret. And they came in and they started the war, and she come running out and she says, remember me, I kept your secret. And they killed her. The moral of the story is, never turn your back on your people.
Just don't trust crazy warlords.
Yeah, don't trust crazy warlords. Yeah. So that was how we came here, and they say that they chased at least 10 families to all the way down the western coast of Michigan, and most of them ended up down there by the Grand Rapids River. I forget the name of that river, what it used. Yeah, the Grand River. That was the English. I was trying to remember the Indian name, but so there's people that still live down there, and our people traded with them and stuff, but they weren't as friendly with them after that. And that was where we came from, was the islands, and that's how we got here. So, Chimagwach Gabejiak, Chimagwach Gabazindawiak, thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for listening to all of us.